Good morning, everyone. My name's Abby Garton-Crosby. I'm a political reporter at The National, and you're joining us today for the Real Scottish Politics Live. I'm joined today by my colleague Judith Duffy. So there was a little bit of news to kick off today, wasn't there, that we could maybe talk about?
Exactly. Just when you think it's all quiet again, then the Conservatives seem to, like to start to kick things off again. So there was a comment by Liz Truss, and I think we have a clip of it which we can show you. She was speaking at Hustings in Exeter last night, and this is what she said.
And I think the best thing to do with Nicola Sturgeon is ignore her. I think look, I'm sorry.
It's a bit difficult when she's First Minister, though. She's got a democratically elected position, just as you would.
I'm sorry, she's an attention seeker, Seb. That's what she is. And
it's interesting, actually. That's the first time I've watched it in full, because I've obviously seen the comments reported this morning, but obviously the applause she got from the audience was quite interesting there.
Yeah, I noted that down to bring that up, because I thought that I also found that very interesting, that the audience, which is obviously all Tory members, clapped when they said that we should ignore the First Minister of Scotland, which I think is I think people can read into that for themselves. That's what
absolutely
that means. But this is obviously a big news story today, with Truss, who at the moment appears to be the kind of favourite to be the next Prime Minister, coming out and basically saying that she's just going to completely ignore the First Minister of Scotland. And I think she was asked about NDRF2 again, and she just said no, just kind of over and over again. So I mean, this story is just kind of escalating. I mean, what's your reaction to that then, Judith, that the way that she phrased that, calling her an attention seeker and
yeah, well, I think it's not only interesting what she said last night, but also the reaction to it that's been around this morning as well. So there's obviously been Tories out doubling down on the attack, basically, because I mean, she looks pretty certain to be the next Prime Minister. She's received backing from more prominent Tories, and they're certainly lining her up to be the favoured candidate. So I think that they're going to double down. They're not going to criticise her in any way. So Jacob Rees-Mogg was on Sky News this morning talking about how Nicola Sturgeon is waffling on endlessly about having a referendum, and she's always moaning. It's this kind of language which is really interesting. So I mean, it's really kind of condescending, really patronising, and from a Scottish perspective, you're thinking, what on earth are they playing at? This is not the way to, even attempt to get anyone in Scotland on side. Even Conservative supporters, must be looking at this thinking, well, why are they taking this tone? And it kind of shows that they don't actually really care about Scotland. I think they don't care about Scotland. They don't care about even Scottish Tories, because that's them in a very difficult position. What are they going to say to this? I know I think some of the Scottish Tories have been out again kind of defending and trying to say, well, this is about the referendum rather than Nicola Sturgeon as a person. But it shows they just don't really care, to be honest, and they only care about playing to their base support. So yeah, it's interesting in how that reveals. So what did you make of the comments yourself, Abby?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting what you said about playing to the support and how well that played to the Tory audience in that in that moment where they clapped and basically, like they were saying, like they're as if they're sick of hearing about it, but they don't have to read the Scottish newspapers like we do. It's not. I'm sure it's not as big a thing down there, where they're going on about it all the time. So yeah, I find it very interesting, particularly because calling her an attention seeker when Liz Truss is quite a fan of a photo shoot. She's been pictured outside the Kremlin with a hat on, the Russian hat. I think there's like pictures of her floating about with an umbrella with a Union Jack on it and things like that. So she's not. Liz Truss is kind of saying one thing about Nicola Sturgeon and then she does it herself. So I just find it very interesting, that how that relationship will develop if Liz Truss does become Prime Minister and how that's going to work between them, especially with everything going through the Supreme Court. I think it's very interesting and a sign of what is to come.
Exactly, and it does maybe set a kind of tone for how it might be as with Liz Truss as Prime Minister in terms of how they might approach unionism. And it's almost like this back to the whole kind of idea of the muscular unionism, which was very much a kind of thing at the beginning of Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister, and that it's kind of a kind of know your place Scotland. You don't have the right. It's kind of like get back in your box and just let us deal with things at Westminster. But the point about that was that I think eventually they realised that this was only shoot themselves in the foot. That it was backfiring. There were lots of warnings from various people about how this was, as they say, it threatening the future of the UK. And so I think then they kind of rolled back on that a wee bit, and there was more of a kind of approach to, we'll show Scotland instead what unionism can do for it, which hasn't exactly been very, very successful, that approach. But it does seem to be now going back to this approach of, well, get back in your box, Scotland, know your place, and this is the kind of approach we'll take. You're not have your referendum and that's it. And I mean, I think there's probably an issue where there was people like Michael Gove, who, whatever you think about him, he did maybe kind of understand that muscular unionism approach to Scotland wouldn't work. He maybe doesn't know a bit about Scotland, and I think there maybe is an issue in that there's people at Westminster and the Tory government, they just have no idea. They just think of independence as a trivial issue that can just be brushed aside, and obviously that's not the case at all. So.
I mean, also there was this morning that came out as well that kind of links into this, because Boris Johnson's main kind of flagship policy was levelling up, and that kind of skipping devolution and paying for projects in Scotland and kind of all over the place. The Scotland office have been quite kind of big and pushing that up here, like through their Facebook adverts and stuff. But Liz Truss has come out this morning and essentially said that she's gonna scrap public. What was it she had said? Written it down. That she was gonna, scrap. There'll be a pay difference between outside the southeast, which is essentially scrapping levelling up. And Labour have said that that's like a death knell for that agenda. So, not. And then last night, after she'd said the stuff about Nicola Sturgeon, she said, we need to work for the whole of the UK. And then the next day has said, well, actually, we're not gonna, because we're just gonna have a pay cut for everybody. And this includes teachers and nurses outside of the southeast London bubble. That we've always had. So it's like, it makes no sense. They say one thing and then immediately the next day they're doing the complete opposite. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think she also said last night as well, what we need to do is show the people of Scotland, and Northern Ireland and Wales that we're delivering for them. And they've been in power since 2010, so they've had plenty of time in which to do that, and they've not shown much signs of it yet. So it's it's interesting that they're taking this approach, and also the idea of kind of ignoring democracy. I mean, it's always their comments come across as if Nicola Sturgeon has just appeared by magic and is somehow, being controversial and wanting another independence referendum, when actually, she was elected, and with the mandate for the referendum. So John Swinney, was making the point that Nicola Sturgeon's got more democratic legitimacy than Liz Truss has, who she's being voted in by, I think it's about 160,000 Tory members, is that right? Something along those lines. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's remarkable that our next Prime Minister will be voted in by so few. Nobody has a say in it apart from Tory party members, and yet they're turning around and saying, well, no, you're not having a referendum that, the people of Scotland voted for. It's just astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's wild to think as well that you think they would. And I wonder if they think that plays to the Scottish Tory membership, like if that's what they think that they want to hear coming from them.
Yeah, I think undoubtedly some people will welcome our comments. So in Scotland and obviously across, when we saw from the cheering audience, so there's no doubt that I think some people will be like, this is exactly the right approach to take. But on the other hand, I think there was a former Scottish Tory MSP, Mary Scanlon, who was saying that she was attacking the comments that Truss made and saying she considers they're completely finished. So I think there will be many who also recognise that it's not going down well in Scotland, and no matter what political party you support, then just the kind of tone of it and the language used is really not right at all.
Yeah, August the 16th is going to be very interesting when they come to Perth for the hustings.
Exactly, yes.
That's going to be fun. But yeah, so that's in a couple of weeks, because obviously they're only doing one in Scotland, but we will have people at that. I think we're already planning that behind the scenes, but yeah, that is going to be a fun night. I think we spent quite a lot of time talking about Liz Truss there. I think, is there any other news?
Absolutely. Well, I think you had a good story in the front page of the National today, didn't you, Abby? Yeah, in terms of talking about the government, the Scottish government ministers and politicians who've been barred from Russia. So this is kind of interesting, and that there's more further action from Russia, isn't there, in terms of taking action against politicians?
Yeah, there was about 39 overall, but there was a big focus on kind of Scottish politicians and this kind of raft of it. So yeah, there's Kate Forbes, Angus Robertson, Neil Gray, who's the Ukraine, the refugee minister, sorry, Ian Blackford, the Westminster leader, and for the Greens, Lorna Slater and Ross Greer. I don't know why Patrick Harvey got left out. I wonder if he feels upset by that. And then Alex Cole-Hamilton from the Lib Dems, who had like a massive press release out yesterday saying that it was like a badge of honor for him, which is quite funny. Made me laugh. But yeah, so yeah, basically Russia has slapped a ban on these politicians saying they can't come to the country, and that is in response to the kind of to the aid and the stuff that they've been given to Ukraine. So that's basically why they've done that. And also one of the funny things is Fiona Hislop is on the list. So she was the former Economy, Fair Work and Culture Cabinet Secretary until 2021, but obviously the reshuffle, she's not in that job anymore. But Russia labelled her as the Cabinet Secretary for Labour and Cultural Affairs. So they got like her job wrong. They got her like, she's not even a Cabinet Secretary, but she's banned anyway. So like, it's quite funny, but yeah. It was just in response to age, basically, the reason that they've done that. So there's a full list. We've got the reaction from all the people who've been barred. Ross Greer's was the funniest. He was like, "How will I survive?" essentially, in a sarcastic tone. I don't think he's too bothered about it.
Absolutely, yeah. But of course, it's really important as well to keep an eye on what's happening in Ukraine, because I think there is a tendency for, you remember when the war started and, there was endless 24-hour coverage, but it's obviously kind of slipped off the agenda slightly in terms of some places. So yeah, so it's definitely obviously important to keep that coverage going. And yeah, just on a final note, I noticed there was another story. You were busy yesterday, Abby. There was another story. This time Boris Johnson, he's off on holiday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he seems to be, having a nice time, flying planes, having wedding celebrations, and now he's off on holiday. Is there any clues as to where he might be going? Or
well, from my reading between the lines, as I was saying to you earlier, I think I worked out it doesn't look like he's going abroad, because it didn't say he was flying off anywhere. If we're looking at the language. But I don't think he's going to come to Scotland, because the last time he was here, he was up on the Applecross Peninsula. And apparently, I don't know why I'm laughing, it's not funny. But but he nearly drowned, I think, in like a paddleboarding incident or something. And he'd said that he was never going to come back after that. So basically, I don't think anybody has any worries about running into Boris Johnson in Scotland this week. I think he'll be off on a lovely country break somewhere down in the Cotswolds or something, who knows. But yeah, so he's taken some time off. He's only got a month to go as Prime Minister, like not even. I think maybe it's the 6th of September, so just over a month. And he's like, well, I'm taking a week off. Might as well use up his holidays before he goes, I suppose.
Absolutely, that's good. Yeah, so obviously, the parliaments are in recess and lots of people are on holiday, but there's definitely plenty of things happening. So yeah, you'll be able to keep up to date with it on the National's website and read about it tomorrow in the paper.
Thanks.